Thank you very much, Brian. How's everybody doing? Good, great. So I'd like to talk about online reputation management, and I want to use some reviews to illustrate some guidelines and best practices in managing your reputation both online and on property. And I want to start by, let's have a look at a review. So it's entitled Disappointing, 2 stars. We booked this hotel because it was close to the beach. Well, minutes away turned out to be a 20-minute walk. Rooms are tired and staff are not very helpful. With so many other resorts to choose from, we recommend staying elsewhere. So let's pretend this is your business. Okay? So how do you feel about this review? Good? Bad? And is there anything specific about this review that would concern you? Sorry, a little bit. Staying elsewhere. Oh yeah, so this last part with so many other great resorts, we recommend staying elsewhere. Yeah, so that's a good point. So not only are they not coming back, but they're a detractor. They're recommending other people to stay away. What else? Misleading information. What leads you to think there's misleading information? Right, and so why is minutes away in quotations? And they're quoting it because where did they see that information probably? Maybe on the website or a brochure, so they felt misled. What about the reviewer? Anything that would concern you there? Yeah, he's a senior contributor. And we're all travelers. We read reviews. And sometimes there's just so many reviews and they're contradictory. We don't know who to believe. So we've gotten good at reviewing the reviewer, haven't we? We checked out the reviewer to see whether or not they're like us or we should trust them. And when you're a senior contributor, you've written 40 reviews and gotten all those helpful votes, that person is going to probably have more influence than your anonymous one-time reviewer. So do you think you'd want to respond to this if this was your property? Probably, right? Because that's not probably the way things are at your property. So something went wrong. So why respond to reviews? More and more hoteliers are actively responding to reviews. And it's great, but of course you want to be, as Brian mentioned earlier, you want to be effective in your response. Otherwise, you can have the opposite results as intended. So it's an opportunity to show that you're listening to the feedback and that you care about it, as well as to change perceptions if people, people may draw certain conclusions based on feedback, and it may not be an accurate representation of your property. To reassure, so you're responding to that one reviewer, but who's your real audience? The world, yeah, all the people who are reading those reviews, trying to decide where to go, where to stay. To clear up misinformation, sometimes people just get things wrong. And highlight the positive. We tend to obsess over the negative part, but as we saw, the average rating is over 4 out of 5. And there's an opportunity to thank reviewers and draw attention to the great feedback you're getting, as well as to be accountable. There's nothing like having to sit down and sweat through the response to a review to make you really think hard about how you're treating your guests. So I've worked in hotels for about 20 years, started on the front desk, and ultimately became a general manager. And we were early adopters of social media at the hotel that I managed called Opus in Vancouver, Canada. And we launched the first ever hotel blog back in 2006. And because we were an independent, contemporary hotel, I could talk about a lot of the things your typical general manager wouldn't talk about in the blog. And so I talked about why we overbook and relocate guests sometimes, and how we deal with difficult guests, and what it feels like to get a bad review. And as a result, we attracted a worldwide following, and it really helped put our hotel on the map. And so I learned early on some of the powers of social media, but I also learned the challenges of social media when you've got a business to run and guests to take care of. Now, I left Opus a few years ago to focus on my secondary career as a novelist, and I've published 3 murder mysteries that are set in hotels. And are there any hotel general managers here, just by show of hands? Nobody wants to admit it? You got a few out there? Well, in my first book, Murder of the Universe, in the first chapter, the general manager of a hotel in New York is murdered. And a lot of hotel employees have bought that book just based on that premise. So as a mystery writer, I find it interesting how travelers have changed, and they've kind of become like private investigators. And they arrive at the doors of our business, and they scrutinize everything. And they take notes, and they take pictures, and they take videos, and they interrogate witnesses, and they publish their findings to review sites and social networks. And that can be wonderful when they're singing our praises, but if they find incriminating evidence, it can be embarrassing, can it? And not only embarrassing, but bad for business. And so we kind of feel like we've lost control. But I really think that we still have a great deal of control and a lot of influence, and that's why I set up my own company, Renown, and I actually specialize in working with the tourism industry and managing social media and reputation online. Now, there's a lot of hype in social media, and I think we need to be skeptical because social media can take up a lot of our time, and it can be very distracting, and it's hard to measure results. But it has changed traveler behavior in ways that we really need to understand in the tourism industry. First of all, how they research trips. So more and more travelers, typically when you're booking a trip, you want to know location, you want to know price, and now that third part is reputation. You want to know what other travelers are saying about a business before you book it. And how travelers communicate with businesses. More than anything, social media has emerged as a customer service tool, especially things like Facebook and Twitter, and being in the service industry, we can't afford to ignore it. And then how they share experiences. People are using social networks to talk about their experiences before, during, and after trips. And Nielsen, a couple of years ago, came out with a survey, big survey. They surveyed 28,000 people in 56 countries and asked about sources of advertising that they trust. And right at the top, 92% recommendations from people I know, which makes sense. We trust the advice of our friends, family, coworkers. But then right below that, at 70%, consumer opinions posted online. These are strangers, and yet we trust their advice more than any other advertising source, more than brand websites, more than emails, more than any type of TV or newspaper advertising. So we don't know these people, but why do we trust them more than all these other sources? What's the difference? Experience? Because they're not marketers. So they've experienced, they're people like us, they've experienced it, and they're not getting anything out of their advice. So we're going to trust them more than we trust marketers. Does that mean these other forms of marketing are a waste of time and money? Of course not. But what it does tell us is if we want to adapt and we want to stay relevant, we need to shift more of our resources toward those top 2 areas, getting people talking about and recommending our brand. And that's really what online reputation management is about, monitoring and engaging on the social web to build awareness, drive advocacy, and strengthen your business. So first of all, it's about being found online when people are planning vacations, and ensuring that the content they find about your business is accurate and appealing, it compels them to book. And understanding that it's not just a marketing function. Those of you that work for bigger companies, some people think, oh, social media marketing. But it actually affects the entire organization. It affects public relations, customer service, and I'll discuss that a bit more in just a moment. So I think the travel industry has been quick to embrace social media, and a lot of people are very active on Twitter and Facebook. But I think the priorities are a bit confused. I think we really need to focus on review sites first. People go to Facebook mostly to socialize, whereas they're going to sites like TripAdvisor to actively shop. So the real decisions are being made on review sites. That needs to be our priority. It doesn't mean that Facebook and Twitter aren't important, but when you have limited time, sometimes you need to prioritize. Now, the next generation of revenue managers is using review metrics to make better revenue decisions. And because reviews are public, you can actually score them. You can measure them and score them and compare your performance with competitors. And there are tools out there like Revenate, like Review Pro, I'm sure some of you use them, that help gather reviews and score them for you. And so now you can actually measure your market share of guest satisfaction, much like you measure your market share of rate, occupancy, RevPAR against your competitors. And Review Pro has this great new tool called Revenue Optimizer that allows you to compare your guest satisfaction index with your rate index, for example. So here on this graph, if you fall in the blue section, for example, you've got a higher rate of guest satisfaction compared to your competitors, but your room rate is actually lower. So it indicates that there may be an opportunity there to leverage that good reputation and drive a higher rate. All right, let's get back to that review and look at a manager response and see how they did. So sorry you feel the ABC Resort is disappointing. Our website states clearly that the beach is a few minutes drive away. Next time, please bring any concerns to our attention so we can fix them. Thank you, the management. So brilliant, right? No? Terrible. So what's wrong with it? Sorry? It sounds defensive. What else? Unsympathetic. Okay, so there's no empathy or sympathy there. What else?
It didn't speak to anything positive about the resort.
Okay, yeah, it was all focused on the negative. Now, so sorry you feel the ABC Resort is disappointing. That one sentence has so many things wrong with it, I don't know where to start. But one thing I do recommend is when you're responding to negative reviews, don't mention the name of your property, because this is all searchable content. You don't want people searching disappointing hotel. Up comes your hotel. And then what do you think about the grammar, the punctuation, the spelling, the capitalized drive? What is this? When we use capitalized, what are we doing? We're yelling at people. Yeah, we don't want to be yelling at our guests. So you think we could do better than that? Yeah, I think so too. Okay, so here's a better response. Thank you for your feedback, which I've discussed with my team. Our resort is a 5-minute drive from the beach, but yes, the walk is about 20 minutes. We pride ourselves on cleanliness and attention to detail, and I'm truly sorry we fell short on standards during your stay. We hope to welcome you back in the future. Mary Smith, General Manager. Now, you're all going to have a different approach to responding to reviews. This is an example that highlights what I call best practices in responding to reviews. Some general guidelines that I think work very well. So first of all, you want to respond promptly. So you don't want to wait a year to respond to a review, especially if it's negative, because it could be scaring people away. And do you need to respond to every review? It's really up to you. Many properties do, but if you have a big property, you get a lot of reviews, that can be a lot of work. I don't think it's necessary, but I think you should prioritize, in any case, reviews that call for an apology or a clarification, or that simply highlight the positive and you want to thank them for the great feedback. What should you say? Well, not much. If your response is longer than the review, it's probably not a good sign. Simply thank the reviewer for the feedback, good or bad. Apologize if something went wrong. Focus on the key issues and say how you're following up so they know that you're actually doing something about that feedback. And tone. Many hoteliers struggle with tone because we tend to be quite formal in the hotel industry. Social media is quite informal. But I think you can still be conversational and professional at the same time. And then if there's false information, people do get things wrong. They forget things. If it's minor, you can probably let it go. But if it's going to set up expectations for other travelers that you can't meet, then you need to clear it up. But of course, do so respectfully. Okay, so let's look at another review here. Just okay, 3 stars. The hotel was older and further from the beach than we expected, and the area is a bit dodgy at nighttime. Staff were pleasant but not overly helpful. Room was big but a bit dusty and definitely needs some updating. Still, the price was good and we'd probably go back. So what do you think of that? Yeah, kind of mixed, not great, not terrible. Now, so we need to mind the gap. We need to understand that when people arrive at the doors of our business, they have certain expectations. And the gap between what they expect and what they get, that's where reviews are incubated. And so ultimately, we have 3 choices. We can fail to meet their expectations, which creates a dissatisfied guest. And that person can be dangerous in the age of social media because they can become a detractor, like that first review we saw. So not only will they not come back, but they're going to recommend other people to stay away. So then we can meet expectations, and that creates a satisfied guest. And they tend to be passives. They might come back, but they might not if a better deal comes along, like that previous review we just saw. And they might recommend us, but it's probably going to be mixed, and the feedback's going to be lukewarm. So they're really not a lot of help to us when it comes to social media. What we really want to do is exceed expectations, because that creates a very satisfied or delighted guest, and they're very valuable to us because they can become advocates. And not only will they come back, but they'll recommend us to others. Now, I started in hotels on the front desk, and on the front desk we spent a lot of time resenting the sales department. And while we, had to wear polyester uniforms and stand and work double shifts and never saw the light of day, they would waft by in a cloud of perfume, looking great in designer clothes, and going off for their and they'd give out upgrades and comp rooms like confetti at an Italian wedding. And if we ever screwed up, we'd hear about it. But the funny thing is, secretly, we wanted to be them, right? And whenever there was a sales position that came up, there was this rush of applications. And one day, I actually got the job. And so I crossed over from operations to the dark side, to the sales department. And when I got there, I found a much different world. I found we were working really hard to meet our quotas under tremendous pressure, very difficult clients. We had to promise them the world to land the business. And then the front desk would would check a VIP into an occupied room or whatever, those things happen. So in the age of social media, we can't have that relationship anymore. We need to have synergy because we're very much interdependent. And our success depends on the operations following through on what the sales department has to promise, and vice versa. Did I hear an amen? Thank you. So As an example, on our website, there's a collection of hotels in New York called the Library Hotel Collection. 4 boutique hotels that are legendary in the hotel industry for dominating the charts on TripAdvisor. At various times, they've occupied the first, second, third, and fourth spot of over 400 hotels in New York. And one of their properties, the Casablanca Hotel, as to illustrate part of their recipe for success, on their website, they have described a room, and it's called the Classic Petite Room. And this is how they describe it. It's the smallest room option. They do not offer a review, and they're not recommended for couples on long stays. It's like they're trying to convince people not to book this room. And just in case you didn't get that, they've got a picture showing that there's no view, with a caption saying, "No view in this room." My, how hotel marketing has changed. It used to be about overpromising and just cleaning up the mess when people arrived. But it can't be like this. And this shows they're doing their best to manage expectations. And that allows them to exceed them when they arrive. And it's part of their formula that's very clever, and I think we can all learn from them. Now, we've talked about the external response to reviews, but of course what's going on property is equally important. And we're going to get raw feedback, and sometimes it's going to hurt. And sometimes it's fair, and sometimes it's not fair. But there's always something that we can learn. So we need to show leadership, listen to the feedback, learn what we can, and then move on. And we can't protect our staff from it. They need to hear the feedback, because if they don't know where you want to go, they can't help you get there. And then, of course, we want to fix the problems that come up. Otherwise, they're not going to go away. But we can't always fix the problems, can we? We might not have the budget. It might be a location issue or some other issue that we can't change. But again, all hope is not lost there. So often you'll see in a review, people will say things like, "Oh yeah, we had this issue, we brought it to their attention, but they did nothing," or they didn't care. And so there was an opportunity to fix things there that we missed. And so a big part of reputation management is training, and making sure our staff have the training and the empowerment to identify and resolve issues on property and prevent them from escalating from an on-property issue to an online complaint, because it goes from private to public and can be far more damaging. All right, let's look at a happy review. Entitled "A Great Deal." 5 stars. "The hotel is a bit further from the beach than we hoped, but Emily at the front desk did such a great job of getting us oriented. We learned to love the area. Rooms are starting to show their age, but the woman who serviced our room had 0 tolerance for dust and germs. We highly recommend this place and can't wait to go back." So this is the same hotel that's had that detractor, and then the passive, and now an advocate. What's the difference? What made the difference? The employees. Yeah, exactly. This is still, further from the beach. They haven't moved the beach closer. The rooms are still kind of tired, but staff have worked really hard to overcome these issues. And they've been trained and they've been empowered to do so. And so internally, as a general manager, I would certainly want to make sure those employees are recognized for their efforts and rewarded to encourage them to continue. So before we go to this, so often hoteliers come to me and go, "Oh, we need help. We get so many 5-star reviews that it's just really hard to come up with an original response." And I think, "Oh, you poor thing. How hard it must be to get all those 5-star reviews." But it's true. It is hard to come up with original responses, isn't it? So let's look at an example of a response to this review and see how how we did. Thank you for your feedback on our award-winning family resort located just minutes from the beach. We hope to welcome you back soon, Sarah, reservations agent. So what do you think?
That's where it gets read about minutes from the beach.
What's that?
That must be where it gets read about minutes from the beach.
Right. So is this a good response? Why? Why? Kind of sounds like the brochure that they cut and pasted from the website. And I don't know, to me, this is not the place to advertise your property. It's up to you. And if you do it, be very subtle. This isn't very subtle. Sarah, reservations agent, I don't know. I think that responses to reviews should come from really high up to show how serious you take them. Even if Sarah is a great writer and she drafts it, I think it should be signed off by GM or somebody high up. So I think we can do better than that. So we have, what a pleasure to find this review waiting for me this morning. I'm delighted to hear you enjoyed your room and our colorful neighborhood. I'll be sure to share your comments with Emily and Magda, who will be thrilled. We hope to welcome you back soon, David Rodriguez, General Manager. So again, we'll all take a different approach to this, but this is a nice way of customizing it to show you're not cutting and pasting your response. You really listened and appreciate the feedback. So I'm going to leave you with an example of a hotel called Our Trip in Madrid. And I met the general manager about 6 months ago. And an amazing story. This property is number 1 of 456 hotels in Madrid. And it's only in a 2-star category. So it's a very simple hotel. And they actually only opened a year and a half ago. And they only have 17 rooms. Yet they're number 1 in Madrid. And I asked this general manager, wow, how do you do it? And he shared 3 of his tips with me. Find employees with 100% positive attitude and the skills to work with the public. And work as the owner or the manager directly with the guests. And treat guests as though they are your family in your home. So this isn't earth-shattering news for many of us who've been in the hotel business. We know these basic principles, but it's sometimes hard to get all the parts moving together. And the interesting thing about Miguel is before he opened this hotel, he had never worked in a hotel before. So, and yet, you know, we have a lot to learn from him. So if you're wondering about the secrets of staying, you know, climbing the ranks on TripAdvisor, there's really no secrets. You need to look and read the reviews of top-ranking properties and see what their guests are saying. And so what we're trying to do here is create what I call a virtuous circle. We're listening to the reviews, and we're taking it really seriously, and we're making improvements as best as we can, and that builds higher loyalty and advocacy, and it attracts more bookings. So this can be very healthy for business, but it requires the cooperation of everybody within your property and your brand. And that's it for me for now. We'll have time for questions later. Thank you very much.